Hello everyone, today we had White Widow released into Marvel Snap, and with that card comes a lot of talk about junk style decks, Annihilus kind of combo packages with Sentry, and I think it'll be really good in both. I think the optimal build is probably going to utilize Cannonball, which I don't currently own, so I wanted to look at other alternative ways. I think a 2-cost kind of junk style card is going to be strong regardless. It's going to be very flexible. You can use it either in a lockout scenario to give you a little bit of extra tempo to locking down a lane with Professor X, or something like we're going to do today, using it inside of a bounce package. Today I'm going to be using the kind of mill style bounce package. There's a lot of ways to build bounce nowadays. Pick whichever one you are having the most fun with, you're having the most success with, and White Widow can probably slot into it pretty well. Being able to use Beast to pull it back up, potentially get a secondary trigger. If you're utilizing Nico, you could potentially use Nico, get a copy of White Widow after you play it on 2, and then drop it again on 3 to give them 2 Widow's Kisses, maybe stack those up, hit it with a Beast later. There's a lot of really cool applications for White Widow in this deck. And the rest of the deck is, I mentioned, going to be using the kind of that mill style build with the Yondu, the Cable, and the Gladiator. Being able to churn through the opponent's cards, get the information about what kind of cards they're running, and to be able to drain the additional or few resources they have left with a Doc Ock is going to be very, very big. I think it hopefully will hold up against the onslaught of Annihilation and junk style decks. You have to be careful about pulling in their goblins with the Doc Ock. So if we get the hint that they're running that style of build, maybe we try to drop Doc Ock into a lane that is capped out on our end so that anything else that comes down is not going to come our way. And so overall, very fun build, a lot of things that you can do, a lot of ways that you can position your cards and kind of outthink and outplay your opponent. And that is the kind of deck that I really enjoy. And I know that this is 2 in a row that I've done mill. I have just enjoyed being able to mill the opponent's decks so frequently and be able to kind of drain them of that resource while getting that extra information, which I'm lacking at the moment. I can't see one card and identify the exact game plan that an opponent is wanting to go with. And so something like Yondu, Cable, Gladiator, and then eventually a Doc Ock can give me a good insight into the entirety of an opponent's build, so I can get a sense of what they're wanting to do for their in-game line. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. And so now they are almost completely out of cards. We're going to be able to mill their very last one and be able to pull some additional cards in. We don't have our Shang-Chi just yet. And so it could be down to the draw. It could be, depending on what we pull in here, if we're able to potentially get them to destroy a null and a death with something like a Deathlock, could potentially be what we're looking for, or if we top deck into Shang-Chi. Other than that, it's just kind of down to that draw, and we'll see. Okay, so we have the Doc Ock coming down, draining all but one of their remaining cards. We have the Hulkbuster, no such luck. We have the Null coming down, the Deathlock that does destroy the Null. And so that is going to leave only 5 power in place of that Null, which is beautiful. And then the Arnim Zola wiping out their left and their middle location. That is beautiful. They only have 1 card left in hand. Whatever they played left and mid will still get played, but we have a lot better chance of being able to take those out, even if they have that death that they end up dropping on the last turn. We should stand a chance of being able to compete against it. We take out their X-23, so I imagine the last card in their build is going to be that death, and that's the only thing that they can do. As long as we can swing 2 of those locations back in our favor, then they're not going to be able to stop the onslaught of just insanity. We don't have a perfect in-game, and it would come down to a read of where they're going to position their cards. I'm okay doing this gamble because it is... Oh, wait. I was hoping... We're going to give them the good old... sweat emote because we did not have a great line. We weren't able to change 2 of those locations, so unless they decided to not play death over here, for some reason, we had no consistent way to overpower that, but they did not know that. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, so first up we have El Jefe I don't, is that Jeff? Is that his username now? I don't know anybody's username. And with the ability to change them so frequently, I have no idea who is who. So if this is Jeff, it's nice to see you again. Hopefully we have a good game. I'm going to go ahead and throw Iceman into Nidavellir. We have White Widow in our opening hand, which is so beautiful. Disrupt their curve a bit. Ooh, Asgard. He's going to be a really good spot to throw our White Widow down. Give them the -4, make them have to commit to that location. I'm game for it. I'm here for it. We're going to go ahead and throw it. Hope that they don't have the White Widow as well. If it is Jeff, I'm sure you're running the same kind of White Widow package, or a White Widow package, I should say. And so we may be able to get some additional card draw from Asgard. The Gladiator could come in decent here, depending on what kind of deck they're running. I'm going to go throw Gladiator to the right. I thought about throwing it at Asgard, but I'm not sure we need to commit that much there. We do pull out the Cosmo. We end up destroying the Cosmo. I think they are probably... Ooh, they have the Gladiator as well, which we hit Beast. Pull back in our White Widow. And we're going to be able to throw back in another Widow's Kiss. Oh, man. What are the unfortunate chances? They will be able to draw some additional cards here. We could get them to be completely capped out with between the Cable and the White Widow. So I think we're going to go Cable, White Widow to the right. Next turn, we'll go Doc Ock to the left. We'll look to clean it up with maybe a Shang-Chi. Is kind of tentatively what we're thinking. The Widow's Kiss in the right lane is going to make them choose. They will be able to cap out Asgard. Ooh. They hit us with the snap. I'm going to go ahead and stick it out. They're going to be through all of their resources, so I assume they could have an Annihilus, right? With the snap, Cosmo seems kind of iffy for it, though. We pull out their Super Giant. So there is the Sentry. They draw through the entirety of their deck. I don't want him to use an Annihilus and send it our way. So I want to cap out this location. They'll be able to clear the Tinker's Workshop, but they still have this to overcome. And so I think it's going to be something like this. We're going to use Hawkeye and then Super Giant. Super Giant's not going to do us anything because it is going to be used off curve. That's okay. We're going to try our best. I assume Annihilus is coming down to the left at some point. The Daredevil. Interesting. Negasonic being that next resource. I mean, we did end up dropping initiative, which is nice. Negasonic is pretty strong in Nidavellir. Can they overcome this with an Annihilus and something? I don't know. If we use Falcon here, we are using it off curve. We're losing 1 energy or 1 power here. We're getting an extra 3 here, which I think we might need. 8, 9, 10, 11. I think you do have us this time, Jeff. I'm going to go ahead and hope that you move your Jeff and don't refill this location. Well, we're going to get the -4 from the Widow's Kiss, so I'm hoping you leave your Jeff here to have this one capped out. Or you drop something big there, is what we're hoping for, because we're going to be able to destroy the Sentry and force another Widow's Kiss into Asgard. If it's the Hood and Annihilus, that does become tough in this left lane. They destroy the right lane perfectly fine. We are going to pull the Hood back in with our Falcon, though. So we take out the Sentry. We have the Widow's Kiss in mid. We are going to be able to just barely sneak this one out. For the 4 cubes, we will gladly take it. Victory. What an intense battle for the first one around. We're going to go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Fellow Creator Paper. The first location is Wakanda Demacy. We get the extra bonus on our White Widow. We have Beast to pull it back in. Unless Paper is running a junk deck, which they were running a junk deck before White Widow came out, when I was running an Annihilus deck. And so it was a very iffy match back and forth. It was an Annihilus versus Annihilus match, which is always comes down to who has it and who plays it in the right order. And so Ravonna does look like it's going to be a Goblin style deck. We have to be careful with the amount of Goblins that can be played. So after turn 3, we're going to shuffle our hand into our deck. That means we don't really want to do the beast now. I do really want to do the beast, but at the same time we don't. And so I'm going to go ahead and do Hawkeye, and then we're going to do Iceman. That's going to make us commit to this left lane next turn, potentially. That could signal for them to use a Goblin. They do have Jeff blocking to make sure we can't completely cap it out, just in case we were a full-fledged kind of junk style deck. They had that as an option. So we pull back into Beast, which is so beautiful. We're going to be able to do Nico into Beast, which is phenomenal value. Next turn, we could do White Widow again. We could do a Doc Ock to try to drain them of some of their cards in hand. But either way, I think we're in a really good spot. I kind of want to snap, but it's paper. We're not gonna snap against him. I typically don't snap against the fellow content creators on release day because they're experimenting just like we are. And so the Green Goblin does come down. Had we not pulled those back in, we would have been guarded against it, but it's fine. We have the Daredevil that they have coming down. Do they have the Professor X? Is what I'm kind of curious of. We have really everything we could need. So we have the Shang-Chi if needed. So we have the Hawkeye, Doc Ock, and could do Nico before Doc Ock change this location. If they have a Hobgoblin in the right lane, it's unfortunate. But you know, it is what it is. Let's go ahead and do Doc Ock into mid. Maybe they cap us out with the Goblin. Maybe they're looking to do a Professor X. If so, this is going to be safe. This one is also relatively safe. Let's see what they did with their Insight. Hobgoblin, Sentry. Very interesting. And so we're looking at potentially an Annihilus coming down this turn from our Doc Ock, which I think is pretty likely. Since they did play the Sentry. So the White Widow comes down. Unfortunate, but it is manageable. The Cannonball pushes Doc Ock into the left lane, so we're not going to be able to... Oh, no. We're not going to be able to pump up our left lane with the Hawkeye. He didn't snap on us. I'm going to go ahead and let it play out. Hopefully this is not an Annihilus. It's a Professor X, which does hold in the Cannonball. This is similar to what I would imagine if I was running a deck that had Cannonball. It's kind of similar to what I had envisioned, and I think it is beatable. Like, had we pulled Professor X with the Doc Ock instead of something like Cannonball, had Doc Ock not got yeeted over here, we could have won that one. That was very winnable, but it's okay. Those coin flips happen. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Gacha, and we start with White Widow in our hand. Beautiful, beautiful opening. I think we're going to go Iceman over Yondu early on, just to add a little bit of disruption. Maybe we hit Annihilus, turn it into 6 cost. Maybe we hit Sentry, turn it into a 5 cost, and make their in-game a little bit clunkier in the process. I'm going to go ahead and throw White Widow into mid, just a good, clean, open location, and we'll kind of go from there. We have the Yondu to use potentially next turn. We have Hawkeye, which can start getting buffed up. The Daredevil is a scary sight. It's just one of those that it's so difficult to play around. You can always do Gladiator in the right lane. We have that option. But for now, I'm going to do Yondu into Falcon. That way we can mill a card. Next turn we can pick up, play Iceman and Yondu again. Maybe we hit their Professor X and make their turn 5, whatever they are so big on pushing on turn 5 with the Daredevil that they want that specific read. Maybe we can stop it. And so we are going to pull a few cards in. We have our Bishop. I'll go ahead and throw it into nowhere. I do think that's a decent location. We have Gladiator eventually for that lane. I'll go ahead and throw Bishop into the left lane. Changed my mind a little bit. Let's go... You know what? Change my mind one more time. We're going to go Bishop into mid. That way we have the opening to be able to do something like Iceman, Yondu, and Beast. When we draw it next turn, we have that possibility. We are potentially worried about Negasonic. That is a very common card now. It does look like, eesh, it does look like we have to be concerned with an Annihilus. So if we do something crazy like a Doc Ock here, they have the Sentry, but we could pull into something. We could also do Doc Ock over here, or we could try to kind of protect ourselves from too much negativity with these 3 cards, and then finish it off last turn with the Doc Ock. But I kind of like the idea. We're going to shoot a Hail Mary. We're going to do Doc Ock here. That's going to give us an extra +3 power on our Hawkeye in the left lane. Their own reveals are going to be kind of tough. They're going to be limited in what they can do. We'll see. They could always Annihilus this turn, and then the Void is there. If we do top deck Beast, we can pull that negative Void back up. That's our kind of play around. If we can't cap out a location, if we can't force their hand into a way where we pull in their Annihilus from one of our mill cards, we pull out their Void. If we can't do that, we have the backup plan or the backup line of the 1 out of 4 Beast that we may or may not draw into. So they do play a card here. It could be Shang-Chi, which would be, it would make decent sense. It is the Shang-Chi, but that leaves them capped out in this location. Right now we have the lead in these 2. They could do Annihilus here. So unfortunately, Nico is using the destruction and not something like double this power or anything like that. So I don't think we can compete against an Annihilus here. 8 power. Actually, do we even need the full 8 power? Because 1, 2, 3, 4 gives us 12, 13, 14. We do need the entirety of the 8 from the Gladiator. This should give us a pretty sizable lead in this lane. And then we're going to hope that if they go Annihilus, that pretty much drains their resources into committing to this right lane, leaving nowhere very susceptible to the low amount of power that we're dropping there. And so with the good Bishop, with the Gladiator, the Hood comes down. That is the negative Hood. Annihilus was going to send it our way, but we completely capped out the location. We guarded against the Annihilus play, the middle location being blocked from the Annihilus, and we are able to hold down the 2 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Zoerak. We do get White Widow early on, so we could do as much as a turn 1 White Widow. But I think I'm going to go with something like the Hawkeye, the Iceman. I'm going to split them up for now, and then depending on what we draw next, maybe we end up going with White Widow into either of those 2 lanes if we can pick them up. If we get that Beast, we definitely want to stack it with the most ideal card, so probably Hawkeye to make sure he has his bonus or his benefit. But since Murder World is a thing, we're going to go ahead and do Gladiator a turn early. They did use Okoye, so their cards are just a little bit stronger. So let's get a better feel for what they're running. I don't know. Okoye plus Nakia. Could be a Sebastian Shaw deck, right? Because he benefits greatly from things like Okoye and Forge and Nakia. So our only kind of benefit is that we do have the Shang-Chi, and we have the White Widow plus the Beast, which is going to be phenomenal. We'll go ahead and throw a lot of those back onto the board next turn. I almost want to snap here. I know that they have some really good potential resources, but I think with the Shang-Chi in hand, we can manage it. They snapped for us. Because I'm thinking this is probably something like a Brood, and so we can throw a White Widow, which reduces the number of Broods they have. Now I'm not going to snap back. I want to, but I'm not going to. They do drop 2 cards, so could be a 3 and a 1 cost. It doesn't make sense for them to invest too much here, so maybe a Nova into like a Brood. Sebastian Shaw already. There is the Nova, and then they have the Sebastian Shaw, which we have the Shang-Chi primed and ready to take him out. He is a massive just stat stick. I don't have him unlocked, but I know him well enough to be very, very aware when he is on the board. Let's go Gladiator, White, Gladiator, White Widow. I mean, he might as well. Go ahead and go Yondu as well. Widow's Kiss here. Maybe we go one more Widow's Kiss on the right side to make sure that we have it after the Shang-Chi. We don't have to invest anything additional in that lane. Yeah, go ahead and throw Iceman in mid. Hope Summers into the Super Float. Interesting. So it is a 3-cost card. We do pull out Brood with our Gladiator. We take out one, but they get the benefit of the others. We cap out Subterraneous, so we can easily win that one and have both of the negative Widow's Kisses taken care of whenever we do. And so Shang-Chi over here, good top deck, is not looking as good. We'll skip, see what they do. It's unfortunate that out of the 4 rocks that were shuffled in, we pulled Brood. But it is what it is. There's a rock, give them extra energy next turn, and a rock. So depending on what they top deck, we might potentially be able to finesse it. I mean, it really comes down to if they have the Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer could be big. It'd be 2 for 6 extra power here. We could win with the Cable. I think we're okay, unless the last card they had was something valuable and they stack both here, which I think is going to be difficult for them to do. I'm going to stick it out against Zoerak. They have the Killmonger, which takes out a good chunk of our resources. We do Absorbing Man, takes them out again. Thankfully, it was not the Silver Surfer. We're going to take out the right lane. We're going to be able to take out mid with the 3 powerful Cable. We should be able to swing that one back in our favor. We will go ahead and gladly take the 4 cube victory. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Brew. Let's see what they ended up brewing with. Now we know that they got a 1-cost card, so they have at least a resource in hand. We do have our White Widow and our Beast, so I'm going to go Iceman into White Widow into maybe a Nico plus Beast to get a copy of the Beast, which would give us another go around, which would be phenomenal to see. That's a tentative line. They have Nebula. We do have an extra energy this turn, so if Nico gives us a good result here, I think to stop the scaling from Nebula, we could just drop Nico, and then next turn Beast would end up turning into a Demon or Falcon or Yondu or Cable, whatever we wanted to end up playing would end up turning into a Demon. So White Widow coming into the left lane, giving us a little bit of benefit. Galactus, I think, is going to have a tough time in the upcoming days with how many White Widows. Not that it's not already having a tough time. I think it's probably already having a rough time. That Destroyer is never going to get played here. Let's go ahead and play Beast. That's going to allow us to next turn do another White Widow plus Iceman. Plus, maybe if we fancy, we could do a Falcon on top of it. To pull it back in. We'll see. Not the White Widow, of course. We'd pull in the Iceman and the Demon that is Beast. And so they do put a couple of cards in the left lane, Titania plus White Widow, so they are going with a Clog style. But fortunately for us, we did end up pulling up that card. And so now it's an Uno reverse back onto you, Brew. We now have the White Widow back in our hand, so we can push that card back over to your side whenever we drop it. Or if you play one and bounce it, I guess our White Widow wouldn't do anything. So maybe we don't go with that. Maybe we just play a few mind games. Maybe they either keep the Titania on their side and then we can have that perfect information of how and what to play. Or a few other scenarios that I kind of like. Let's go Iceman. And I'm going to go ahead and go Falcon as well. That's going to pull all of these cards back in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe we don't want to go Falcon. We can just as easily go Cable. We would be able to do Iceman once again if we could pull it up, or if they didn't bounce Titanium to their side, we would have been able to do that one as well. But I think it's a little bit safer to leave it and figure out how they're wanting to play that one. And so, oof. That is a tough one. If they do have a Nihilus, very, very scary. So, do we have initiative? That is beautiful. If I'm envisioning a destroyer play here with the Professor X that we stole from them, mind you. I think we go Professor X in the left lane. That's going to lock this in. If they'd have a Nihilus, that's fine. That is perfectly fine. We cancel out our Widow's Kiss. Theirs should still be intact. We could do Destroyer and have that plus 16 in the right lane. We're going to go ahead and snap back, lock in the left lane with that Professor X, and hopefully double up. I think the left lane is going to surprise them a touch with it being locked in with Professor X, I'm hoping. And so in the right lane, they end up going with what? They go with the Annihilus, which is perfectly fine. They send us the Widow's Kiss on this side. They send us the Negative Void on this side. This lane is ours. It is locked in. We could go something like Shang-Chi, and that brings us up here, but that leaves us with the problem of the Negative Void. And so, honestly, I like this line. That takes care of the negativity here, leaving us with a positive 16. I mean, what else do they have? What else do they play? They potentially have goblins, which are risky. They have a couple of things. I'm going to stick it out. I think the Destroyer is going to be just surprising enough in that right lane to steal it back home. I think they focus on the left lane pretty heavily here. Debris comes down, not going to do anything for them. The Daredevil comes down. Let's let our Destroyer out. We use the resources that we got from either Cable or from the Great Portal to be able to seize and kind of capitalize on what their anticipated game plan was and be able to capture the 8 cubes, thankfully. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right. Unfortunate. We're not going to read his name. I read most people's name. We're not going to read that one. First up, we have Titan, which is going to allow us to not get any kind of reductions on our cards. But we do have Iceman, Hawkeye, and Cable. We have Bishop that can come down as that kind of mid-range power push, which we haven't got to utilize much since running this deck. We have a lot of ways to push some good power and some good disrupt, depending on what the opponent has. We use Cable, we take their Deathlock, so we know that they're running another Destroy style deck. And so it gets kind of tough, but Mojo World actually works out in our favor in a lot of cases. We have Shang-Chi to defend one of these two. It's very hard for a Destroy deck to completely cap out another location. So Mojo World typically is more easily won if you have some lower end cards. And so they have the Deadpool, which is going to be phenomenal. They're going to get through some additional card draw. Great. Fantastic for them. And let's see what else we have going. They have the Wolverine. We know that they have the Deadpool that will start cooking, start simmering. We have the Doc Ock to drain them of cards in hand, which I think is going to be beautiful to see. Let's go. I'm going to go Iceman into Falcon in Mojo World. That will pull these two back in. We're going to start buffing up our Bishop. Turn 5 is our Doc Ock into the Shang-Chi. Unfortunately, no White Widow to be able to utilize, but since it's the Destroy deck, that's not what we want to completely lean on. I do anticipate Destroy being very common over the next couple of days, as Junk is understandably going to be very common in the meta. I don't think that's White Widow's only strength, and I think that a lot of people are maybe underestimating just what White Widow can do in just a regular build. So I think they're going to stack over here, and I assume they're avoiding Mojo World. It's either we play in Mojo World or we drop something like Doc Ock into Asteroid M or into Titan and hope to make this one very easy to win with cards like Hawkeye, Iceman, and then Shang-Chi somewhere else. I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and snap back against them, and hopefully we can steal this one away for 4 or even 8 cubes to end out an absolute incredible run of games. So they do double up in Asteroid M. Perfect. That allows us to pull in 3 of their remaining 6 cards because Venom does do what Venom does. Maybe we can pull into some good resources. Death, huge. Forge and Deadpool. So now we are looking at not having initiative. Perfect. We can do something like Shang-Chi here into the Hawkeye and Iceman. Unless they can just pump out some ridiculous power. As far as cards destroyed go, their null would be over 10 power. So I wanted to double check and make sure that it was not going to potentially destroy the Venom into buffing up the null. But I think we should be fine here. Let's go ahead and lock this one in. Or is it safer to do Death here? So Death takes out 12. It brings them down to 14. We're safe from the Killmonger. We're safe from the Killmonger because we don't have initiative. Unless they can flood all 4 cards, which one has to be a null, there's no way. We win the left lane. Let's go ahead and lock in the Shang-Chi to the left. They have 1 card here being X23. They have the null coming down, which we could have destroyed with Shang-Chi, clearing that one out entirely. So either or, we could have done it either way. Hate to end on a loss, but I'm gonna do it to you guys. You guys know in spirit, I actually put the Shang-Chi mid. I forgot about Asteroid M. We're still knocking off those fine-tuned motor skills with the cobwebs and with the minute movement. But in your hearts, know that I won. Later, guys.